The Tudors reigned from 1485 to 1603. We know what they wore, we know what they ate, and we know details about their lives. However, Black Tudors are not often discussed. Part of the reason for this is because of a lack of factual information. Recently there has been a book that has been published which gives us more of an insight into some lives of Black Tudors. They came to England from Africa, from Europe, from the Spanish Caribbean, and they came with privateers, pirates, merchants, aristocrats, even kings and queens, and they were largely accepted into Tudor society. They were baptised, married, and buried by the Church of England, and also paid wages like other Tudors. However, this still doesn't mean that it is morally acceptable. Lots of these people were taken from their homes and almost made to change and made to become different. Yet their experience is extraordinary, because unlike the majority of Africans across the rest of the world, in England under Tudor England, they were free. They lived in a world where skin colour was less important than religion, class or talent. Before the English became heavily involved in the slave trade and before they founded their first colony in the Americas. So these stories hope to give you some insight into what it might have been like for a Black Tudor in England. Now, John Blank was present at the court of Henry VII from at least 1507, and he may have arrived with Catherine of Aragon in 1501. When she came to Spain to marry Henry VIII's older brother, Prince Arthur, he probably travelled with her. In 1509, he performed at both Henry VII's funeral and Henry VIII's coronation. He was paid wages, and he successfully asked the new king for a pay rise. He married in 1512 and was given a wedding present by Henry VIII. But after that, he largely disappears from records. Jacques Francis was an expert swimmer and a diver, both skills common to his native land, but extremely rare in Tudor England. He was part of a team hired to salvage guns from the wreck of the Mary Rose in 1546. When his Venetian master was accused of theft by Italian merchants based in Southampton, Francis became the first known African to give evidence in an English law court. Diego ran through gunshot in his eagerness was to be taken aboard Francis Drake's ship when it docked in Panama in 1572. He forged an alliance between the English and the locals that resulted in the capture of over 150,000 pesos of Spanish silver and gold. Following this adventure, Diego returned to Plymouth with Drake, and then they set sail together once again to circumnavigate the globe in 1577. He was with Drake when he passed through the Straits of Magellan, raided South Africa, and laid claim to California in the name of Elizabeth in 1579. Diego died of an arrow wound sustained after a fight a year earlier. Reasonable Blackman made an independent living as a silk weaver, living in Southwark. The silk industry was new to England, but its products were the height of fashion. He had probably arrived in London from the Netherlands, where both had a sizable African population and was a known centre for cloth manufacture. He had a family of at least 3 children, but sadly lost a daughter Jane and a son Edmund to the plague that struck London in 1592. Mary Phyllis was the daughter of Phyllis of Moresco, who was a Moroccan basket weaver and shovel maker. She came to London, estimated in about 1583, where she became a servant to John Barker, who was a merchant and sometime was a factor for the Earl of Leicester. By the time of her baptism in the summer of 1597, she was working as a seamstress from East Smithfield, named Millicent Porter. Porter died on the 28th of June 1599, but we do not know what became of Phyllis. She was, however, present in London during a period which saw a succession of ambassadors arriving in England from her native land in order to negotiate alliances amongst the common enemy, Spain. One of a number of Africans recorded in oral locations was Catalina of Almondsbury. She lived in the small Gloucestershire village of Almondsbury, not far from Bristol, until her death in 1625. An inventory survives of the goods that she owned. Her most valuable possession was a cow, which not only supplied her with milk and butter, but allowed her to profit from selling these products to her neighbours. No furniture is listed, which suggests she may have shared her home, perhaps with a woman called Helen Ford, the widow who administered her estate. Her possessions, from her cooking utensils to her tablecloth, each tell us something about her life. But the fact that she had them at all tells us even more. Africans in England, like Catalina, were not owned, but they also possessed property themselves.